Hey guys, Luke from MSC Performance, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the RPE scale and the reasons behind why we've decided to move all of our Barbell Club program exclusively to the RPE scale. So previously in the past, using our Barbell Club programming, we've used a combination of RPE and also percentages. So we used to give people a starting point with a percentage and then an RPE to try and hit. But we've decided now to move exclusively to RPE. The reason being is that this first block back, obviously a lot of people were detrained, some people had done nothing during lockdown, some people had done some home sessions, and some people had access to equipment. So we knew the percentages would be very vague and it wouldn't be individualised to the person. So we thought it would be better to give people the stimulus that we wanted without the use of percentages, and it worked really well. That being said, there's a few people that are very new to the RPE scale, and that's why I've decided to make this video today, to introduce you to the fundamentals and help you get the most out of your programming if you're a member of the Barbell Club or not. So the RPE scale isn't anything new. It's been around for a long time, predominantly used to judge our cardio training or aerobic training, and that was part of the Borg scale, which was a 6 to 20 score to judge your difficulty of aerobic training, roughly translated to your heart rate divided by 10. So if you was at 180 heart rate, that would be an 18 on the 6 to 20 scale. It's then been adapted to a 1 to 10 score to make it slightly simpler if you haven't got access to heart rate tracker. And then recently by Michael Teixeira, it's been adapted for your strength training. So you now have a scale of 1 to 10 on how difficult we judge your sets. Okay, so if we take a look onto the whiteboard, you can see the RPE scale, which is reps in reserve, which has been modified for strength training. So this is the scale that we're using at the moment as part of our Barbell Club programming. As you can see, it's a scale just of numbers, nice and simple. A 7 RPE would mean you would be able to perform 3 more repetitions after you've completed the set. A 7.5 would mean definitely 2 repetitions, potentially 3 at an absolute push. 8 would then be 2 reps in reserve, and so on. When you look at your maximal sets, it's slightly different. A 10 would be 0 repetitions in reserve, so an absolute max. And a 9.5 would mean normal repetitions, but potentially add a little bit more load. So that is the RPE scale and the reps in reserve scale that we use as part of your Barbell Club programming. These are the reasons why we use the scale. So your traditional training would typically have a percentage and a rep scheme that you would be given to hit. While this can be great and it can allow some structure, it doesn't take into account external stresses that we all have if we're athletes or if we're just general populations that enjoy strength training. So with the RPE scale, it takes these external factors into effect. So these can be your quality of sleep, your eating, your hydration, and also the amount of external stress probably from your job. So if you have had a great night's sleep, you've eaten and drank properly all day, you're probably going to have a great session. On the flip, if you've had a tough day at work, you haven't probably eaten as much as you should have, it's going to have an effect on your training, and this is what the RPE scale takes into account. It allows flexibility with your load selection. So if you've come into the gym, you're feeling a little bit shitty, you can reduce the load down to hit the desired RPE. So if you have 3 sets of 5 and you're looking for a 7 RPE, if last week you did 75 kilograms and you felt amazing, fantastic, this week you feel a little bit shitty, you might have to drop the weight down to hit the same stimulus without overshooting and getting yourself into a predicament where you're working harder than you maybe should at this part of your training cycle. The last one is the accuracy will improve over time using the scale. It can be a little bit daunting implementing the RPE scale, but over time of using it, your accuracy of choosing your set will improve. When you first begin, it's difficult to think of what you should be doing for a 7 RPE, but over time, once you've got this training data down, it becomes a lot more accurate to put the right weight on the bar. So those are some of the pros. It does have its negatives. It can be hard to gauge at first, so if you come in and I tell you to do 3 sets of 5 and 7 RPE, you haven't got a starting point and you don't know where to begin. That can be one of the downfalls. The second point would be that certain sets can be difficult to regulate and can be difficult to choose a weight. For example, high repetition work in particular is quite difficult to gauge, especially when it's far from failure. So a set of 12 at 6 RPE is a lot harder to gauge than a set of 2 at 9 RPE. That's one of the pitfalls and one of the downfalls of RPE training, but it's a very minor one compared to the pros that it does allow us to do. Okay, so how will this look over a training block? I'm going to give you 2 examples now of 2 people that are lifting using the RPE scale. They're both following the same program, so they have a top set of 4 at around a 7 RPE. The first person is in control of their external factors, so their sleep, hydration and food is great every single time, and their external stress is at least consistent throughout the block, so week to week there's no massive variating. The second person is a little bit more erratic. They sometimes don't eat that well, sometimes they don't drink enough during the day, their sleep pattern is very mixed, and their external stress through work is also varied week to week. So let's see how that would affect the training blocks. Both the people are following the same program. They're looking for a top set of 4 at around a 7 RPE. As you can see, the person in control of the external variables is quite consistent with their training and in terms of the amount of progress they're making week on week. So week 1, they've done a top set of 4 at 60 kilograms. Week 2, they've upped that to 65 kilograms, hitting the same RPE, being able to perform 3 more reps on reserve. They then took a jump to 67 and then week 4, 70. So the progress slowed down week 3 to 4 as expected, as the stimulus wasn't quite as novel, but they still made good consistent progress, hitting the same RPE. How would this look with external factors being a bit more varied? So second person is going for the same set of 4 at 7 RPE. Week 1, they've hit the same weight, 60 kilograms. Week 2, external factors might have been in control. They've upped to 65 kilograms the same. But as you can see, on week 3 and week 4, it's slightly more varied. So week 3, this person might have had a bad night's sleep, they might have had a high external stress through training, and that's reflected in the number they've done. They've took the weight back down to 60 kilograms. This means they're still getting the strength stimulus without overreaching, without pushing, and without overworking from what the program has asked for. Session 4, they've gone back up to 65 kilograms, but they haven't quite took the same jump as the first person. So external stressors have had a bit more of an effect of person 2, but they've still been able to get the most out of the training and still getting the same stimulus as person 1, but the numbers have just been reflected in their external stress. The main things to know for using RPE is that we're chasing a stimulus, we're not chasing a number. With your traditional training, you would have, if you're doing a set of 4, continue increases week on week, not taking into effect external factors and not affecting individuality. This is what we use reps on reserve for. It allows us to adjust things week on week based on how we feel. As we adapt to a stimulus, it allows us to take bigger jumps. If things outside the gym aren't quite as good, or we're not feeling strong, or fatigue's higher, that's affected in the weight that we select. So that's the reasons why we use RPE and reps in reserve. A couple of things I wanted to pick up on just before we finish off with, a couple of notes and little rules that we use here at the gym. So we use a whole RPE as roughly 4%. So that means if you're doing a 7 RPE one week and then the next week we're looking for an 8 RPE, or if you have 2 sets back to back of 7 and 8, roughly a whole RPE equates to 4%. That's the findings that Eric Helms has done as part of his research into RPE. So we can use that as a starting point and then we can adjust it individually based off individual differences. So if you do a set of 7 RPE at 70, you're then going to add 4%, which I've chosen a terrible number for, but you get the drift. You're adding 4% to your 70 to get your set at 80. If you miss your top set by more than a whole RPE, so if you're looking for that top set of 4 and we hit it at a 6 RPE, you could do 4 more reps rather than 3, we would advise taking the set again. If it's half an RPE, I probably wouldn't bother, but if it's an RPE or more, it's probably worth retaking the set just to get the strength stimulus and not to miss out on some good training and productivity. Final point that I wanted to pick up on is if you're new to RPE and you've not used it at all, the main thing to do to begin with, just to improve your accuracy of RPE, I would probably start just trying to use percentages or use something that you've used in the past. So if you have a set of 5 at 7 RPE, maybe give yourself 75% or talk to your coach or talk to someone that knows a little bit about training. Choose a weight that would be the average for a person or what you've done in the past, and then start to just think about your RPEs. So complete your working sets and then think about what difficulty you would rate them at. So you've done your 3 sets of 5 at 75%, and then just start to think about how difficult you found that last set. You might say, okay, I could probably do 3 more repetitions, log it down as a 7 RPE, just start to think about it and get into the habit of starting to use RPE. And from there, after a couple of weeks of using and just thinking about RPE, you'll be able to integrate it a lot more effectively and get a lot more out of the training. So start by just thinking about your RPE, using your percentages, and then slowly start to progress into an RPE exclusive program if that's something that you're looking to do. So I hope that's helped, guys, and I hope that helps you clear up for people that are just getting used to RPE. Hopefully you can start to integrate it a bit more effectively into your training program, and I'm looking forward to seeing you implement it. If you've got any questions, give myself a shout, and I will see you soon. Thank you.